On this week's episode of The Science Inside, the Wits Radio Academy looks at the drought South Africa is experiencing. Now I'm joined on the line by Elna Schutz, and she's going to speak to us a bit more. Elna, thanks so much for joining us again.
Of course.
On this week's episode of The Science Inside, the Wits Radio Academy investigates the science behind the drought South Africa is currently experiencing. We're joined on the line by the Wits Radio Academy's Elna Schutz to speak a little bit more. Elna, thanks for joining us. Now, how did the show start off this week?
Actually, it starts off with a veggie patch. Now, we always think of the drought as this huge national problem, which is true, but it's one of these crises that really do affect us all in some personal way. So we start with one woman and her cabbage patch, just to see how the drought is affecting people. And after that, we look at water in a bigger way, because that's, of course, exactly what the drought comes down to, our water supply.
Tell us a little bit, without giving away too much, what are the types of things that are highlighted in that little segment of where our water comes from?
I don't know if you've ever really thought about it, where your water came from before it came flowing out of your tap, but the WWF has done exactly that, and there's a great little app that will show you where your water comes from. So we go through that, but then we also go to something very interesting in terms of scientists making water out of thin air, which I think we've all wished for before.
Absolutely. Now, we also know that 30% of our drinking water gets flushed down toilets, and that's quite a scary statistic. So you investigated a way for South Africans not to be wasting water at all when it comes to using the toilet. Tell us about that.
Exactly. I think none of us really want to think about our toilets, but once you do start thinking about it, it is perfectly wonderful, drinkable water that's being flushed down there. More or less 10 liters every time you flush the toilet, which is a lot in a water crisis. So I speak to various national experts about this in terms of the future of toilets that might not involve water at all. To give you a little bit of a glimpse of that, there might be a future where your poo gets microwaved, which is weird to think about, but it would be very eco-friendly.
Very weird to think about indeed. Yes. Are there other options?
There are already options on the market that use biological processes as opposed to chemical processes. And one of those I actually went to visit. It's called the EnviroLoo. And I'm not going to get into the process because it's about poo. But they have a way of dealing with waste that works quite well, especially in rural areas.
Of course, all this information is available on the podcast, which is below this video. How can our audience contact you and interact on social networks?
It's The Science Inside on Facebook. That's the best place to find us. But you can hop straight to SoundCloud and search for The Science Inside, or find us on journalism.coza.
Elna, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Of course.